Have you ever just felt really worn down? I know you have before, but I guess I'm thinking a little more specific. Like right now, I feel like we are at this point in history where everybody's just feeling exhausted emotionally. And maybe it's because we wear masks all the time. Maybe it's because the political landscape in our country is insane. And maybe it's because of COVID and just the fear that looms of what could happen and who you love that you might lose because of it. I think that as we kind of wind up our study in the Gospel of Luke, I want us to look at a story. We're going to jump ahead. We're going to, this sounds terrible. We're going to skip the crucifixion story this time in the Gospel of Luke, not because it's not important and not because there isn't good that we can really glean from that, but because I think this story fits where we're at right now. It's in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23. Chapter 23. And in Luke chapter 23, there's this story. Now, here's what you need to know about the Bible and different stories. And that is, there are some places that stories occur that they don't occur in other places. And there are some stories that happen in each of the Gospels, right? This story is not found in any other Gospel. Luke is the only one that tells this story. And it's an interesting one. Look at what it says in Luke chapter 23, chapter 24, starting in verse 13. It says, "Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him." So Jesus has died, he's been buried, and two of his followers are on their way to this place called Emmaus, and Jesus just randomly shows up and starts walking with them, but they have no clue that it's him. Now, let me set the stage a little bit better for you here. Jesus' followers were really tired and weary and disappointed, just honestly, because they had thought that Jesus, being the Messiah, would be the one to lead them to freedom from the Romans, that they would leave that oppression behind and that they would be free again. This huge, wonderful, amazing thing. That's what they believed the Messiah to be. But now that Jesus has died, it takes on a different form, right? It's not the same thing. Jesus didn't come to overthrow governments, but to be a sacrifice. Totally, totally different. And so these guys are walking along. This person comes up to walk with them, and they just start talking to him. They don't realize that he's Jesus. They were kept from recognizing him. Interesting. Look at verse 17. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." All right, so these followers, one of them we know his name is Cleopas, they are on the road, they're walking, when Jesus, who they don't recognize, says, "Hey, what are y'all talking about?" They're like, "Dude, don't you know what's been happening? Don't you know what's been going on?" It'd be like if somebody didn't know about COVID, or somebody didn't know about the election process here in our country, like these things that have just been front and center, like huge issues. They say, "Are you the only person in Jerusalem who doesn't know? Like, are you the only sad person who doesn't know about, this crazy thing that's been happening?" And they go on to explain about Jesus and who he is. They actually call him a prophet here. They said he was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. And they go through the whole thing that they went to the tomb, these women went to the tomb and didn't find his body. And so they're distressed about that too, because now the body, like who would do that? Who would go and take that body? Look at what happens in verse 25. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. So Jesus says, "Dude, don't you know about the prophets? Don't you know what they said? They said that the Savior would have to go through these things." And I love that it says this. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. They still have no clue he's Jesus, but he's telling them about himself as if he is not himself. So like in the third person, I guess. Crazy. 28. It says, as they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem, and there they found the 11 and those with them assembled together, and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on the way, and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. They are coming up on this village. Jesus acts as if he's going to continue on. And then it says they urged him strongly, like, "Come on, stay with us." It's like when he explains all this that's going on to them, right? Like when he explains about the prophets and how that works and all these scriptures about the Messiah, it's almost like they stumbled upon this great teacher that they didn't know. And so they're like, "No, we want you to stay with us. Like, come on, stay with us. Don't keep going. It's late, but we want to hear more." It's like they couldn't get enough. Once Jesus started teaching them, they wanted more. And so he stays, and they begin to eat together. And it says their eyes were open, and they recognized him, but he disappeared from their sight. So this meal starts to take place. He breaks the bread and blesses it, and then they recognize him. Then they get it. It's like in this moment of communion together, they get it. They see who he really is. And then he's gone. Gone. It was the end of the day. It was dinner time. It was probably dark. These guys don't care. They've got to get back to Jerusalem because they've got to tell the rest of the disciples, "Man, here was what happened, and Jesus, he is risen." I've always thought it was interesting that that Luke is the only gospel that tells this story, but I think there are so many great things for us to think about. Oh, we can think about how they were sad. They were hurt because they loved Jesus so much. And when it felt like he was gone, they were devastated. And I don't know that we take our faith so seriously as they took that. When he started explaining things to them, their hearts were open to it. They were ready for it. And so when Jesus teaches them, they listen and they soak it up. And I don't know that our hearts are always ready for that. I don't know that we're always prepared for what it is that God is going to teach us about and lead us through. And when he acts like he's going to keep going down the road, when Jesus seems to be continuing to move on, they say, no, we're not done. We need more. And I don't know that our hearts do that either, that we long for and beg for more. I also don't think there's any sense of urgency in Christians today like there is with Cleopas and his friend. That when they find out the good news that Jesus is not dead, that he is not still in the tomb, that he in fact has risen, they rush back to tell everybody else. In the middle of the night, it doesn't matter what time it is, they've got to go and tell everyone. And so they do. I don't think our hearts have that same sense of urgency. I don't think we are so anxious to tell other people that Jesus has risen. But in a world where we are weary, where we long for things to be better, whether that be politically or socially or health-wise, we long for things to be better and we grow weary because it's just difficult. I think we need to put our hearts in the best possible position, that our hearts are ready to hear the words of Jesus and to accept the words of Jesus and to let them move us and propel us forward. And not only that, but to share that good news with other people. And I'm so thankful we've gotten to walk through the book of Luke. And I know for me, as I've looked at it again, and we've looked at this idea of learning to trust God, learning to trust Jesus, it's hard to trust when things are difficult. But my hope and my prayer for you is that through this whole process, through all the craziness in our world, that you will continue to be someone that holds on to hope, that holds on to the fact that Jesus is not in a tomb, but he has risen from the dead. Praise be to God that he can overcome sin and death, and that he loves us with a crazy, passionate, reckless love. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week. Have a great week.